Hi and welcome to this video on simple interest from the General Mathematics Curriculum Unit 1. So we're going to talk about simple interest today, and it's not too bad. In fact, some would say it's quite simple, and that's why it's called simple interest. So you will see this continuously, and you'll build this into sequence and series work in Unit 3, so it's really worth understanding the background of what you're doing. So let's talk quickly about what simple interest is first. When you borrow money from a bank, you'll pay an extra bit of money on top of what you borrowed, and this is called interest. So it's the reason why a bank is willing to lend you money, because they will make some money out of you. But you're probably willing to borrow money because it means you can purchase something earlier. Similarly, when you invest money, the bank will pay you a bit of money for letting them hold on to your money. Now the bank will then lend that money to someone else to make money, but that just means that you don't have to worry about doing that. So you will earn some interest on it. Interest is paid as a certain percentage of what you borrow or invest, and it's paid over a specific time period. Now we're going to talk about simple interest, and you will have already spoken about simple and compound interest, so this should just be a review. Simple interest, though, honestly, in real life, really uncommon. Normally, you're dealing with compound interest, but it's important to understand what simple interest is. So here's a quick example. You might borrow $5,000 from a bank who's charging you 4% interest rate per year. How much interest would you pay after 3 years? Now we can really play around with this. What is 4% of $5,000? That's how much you're paying per year, and multiply that by 3 or whatever. But here is our formula, and this formula leads to this. The interest, I, is equal to the principal, P, times the interest rate, I, times by the number of years, N. I equals PIN, and this is on your formula sheet. Now it's important to note that I is equal to the interest rate as a decimal. So it's whatever rate you're offered, 4%, over 100. It has to be as a decimal. The other thing to note is that I could be yearly, in which case N would be the number of years. But I could also be monthly, in which case N would be the number of months. And if you're given I, or you're told I is monthly, then you might have to determine your interest rate in months. Now, it turns out this is not such an important principle in simple interest. It's going to be the same anyway, but it's a really good thing to start thinking about now. So when you get into your compound interest, you're getting that calculation right. So I equals PIN, and we have to make sure that I and N are in the same time periods: yearly, monthly, etc., etc. So in this case, how much interest would you pay after 3 years? I is equal to the principal, $5,000, times by the interest rate, which is 4, but over 100, times by the number of years, 3. And so 4% of $500 is $200, or $5,000, so is $200, times by 3 is $600. That's how much interest you'll pay over 3 years. Now let's formalize this a little bit more. The simple interest formula is I equals PIN. And then we have I is the interest, P is the principal, the original amount, I is the interest rate as a decimal, and N is the number of years. It's really important to recognize this layout, and so I'm going to do the next couple of questions in this layout. It's a really great way of setting out a question, because you have a level of interpretation you now need to apply. So example 1, Ebony invests $3,000 in a bank that offers her an interest rate of 2% per annum. And we're assuming simple interest in this case. How much interest does she earn after 7 years? So if you set this out by writing the formula and then starting with IPIN and writing down the things you know or don't know, this will be a really easy question. So we know that the principal is $3,000, and we know that she's offered 2% per annum, which I'm going to write down as 2 over 100. Get the conversion done now. And I want to know how much she earns after 7 years, and I is the thing I'm trying to find, so that's where the question mark is. So if I equals PIN, in this case that means it's equal to 3,000 times by 2 over 100, which is 0.02 incidentally, times by 7. And so 1% of $3,000 is 30, so 2% is 60, times by 7 is $420. So she will earn $420 in 7 years, which is actually not a lot. So we need to keep that in mind. Now, example 2, if I was in class, this would be the your turn example, but I'm not in class, so we're going to talk about Mia taking out a $2,000 loan from a bank, and I'll do it with you. It charges an interest rate of 3.5% per annum. How much interest does she pay if she takes 6 years to pay off the loan? And how much money does she pay in total over this time? So we're making some assumptions here, and at this stage you can make these assumptions. If she's taking 6 years to pay off the loan, but she's paying it down periodically, her interest rate will change. So we're assuming that once her 3.5% of the original loan is determined, she continues to pay that until the loan is repaid. That's our first thing. And second thing is we're assuming simple interest, but I think that's reasonable in this case. So how much interest does she pay if she takes 6 years to pay off the loan? Well, interest is the thing we don't know. The principal is $2,000. The interest rate is 3.5%, which is 3.5 over 100, and n is the number of years, in this case 6 years, and so I is equal to 2,000 times by 3.5 over 100 times by 6, and that's equal to 1% of 2,000 is 20, 3.5% therefore is 70, times 6 is, would you believe it, $420 again. And then the second question, B, how much money does she pay in total over this time? So that means that she pays interest, but she also repays the principal amount. She repays what she borrowed. So A is the total amount, and it's equal to interest paid, which is 420, plus the principal, which is 2,000, and so in total she repays $2,420. And now we move on to that exercise 2B in the textbook. All the best.